My wife took our daughter's trust fund and ran off with her lover. I was devastated, but then my 15-year-old daughter looked at me and said, "Don't worry, Dad. I took care of everything." 2 days later, my wife called, screaming after she realized what our daughter had done. The first thing you notice when you walk into our home is the scent of lavender. Sarah used to burn these little candles, filling the air with a calming aroma. But now, as I stand in the doorway, the scent feels more like a ghost, a reminder of what once was. My name is Tom, and I'm 42 years old. I live here in Maplewood, New Jersey with my wife Sarah and our daughter, Emily, who's 15 and has this uncanny ability to see through the chaos of life with a clarity that often leaves me in awe. Our house, it's modest, nothing fancy, but it's ours. Or at least it was. You see, Sarah, she's changed. Over the last year, she's become distant. Her mind always somewhere else. It's like she's here, but not really. And Emily, she's been our anchor. Her quiet strength a stark contrast to the storm brewing around us. I remember the day, a typical Thursday, when the world as I knew it began to unravel. Sarah walked into the living room, suitcase in hand, her eyes avoiding mine. She said she was leaving, moving in with Greg, a man she met at yoga. The shock was like a physical blow, but what twisted the knife was her next confession. She had taken Emily's trust fund, the money we had set aside for her future, her education, her security. It was a betrayal that cut deep. Emily, though, she didn't cry or scream. She just stood there, her face a mask of calm, but her eyes, they told a different story. They were like the sky before a storm, dark and tumultuous. The next morning, the house felt empty without Sarah. I was lost in a fog of betrayal and confusion, trying to figure out how to explain this to Emily, how to move forward. Emily, however, seemed to have already processed the situation. Over breakfast, she looked at me with a determination that was both comforting and unsettling. "Don't worry, Dad. I took care of everything," she said with a calmness that belied her age. I was puzzled, unsure of what she meant. Did she confront her mother? Did she call the police? My mind raced with possibilities, but Emily offered no further explanation, only a reassuring smile. That day, I tried to focus on work, but my thoughts were elsewhere, constantly returning to Emily's cryptic assurance. As I sat at my desk, staring at the computer screen, the words on the report blurred into meaningless lines. My mind kept drifting, back to the breakfast table, to Emily's words. What had she done? The uncertainty was like a weight on my chest, making it hard to breathe, to think. I remembered the look in her eyes, the storm brewing there, and it sent a chill down my spine. Emily had always been wise beyond her years, but this was something else. Something that made me question how well I really knew my own daughter. I glanced at the clock, realizing hours had passed without any real work done. The office was quiet, everyone else engrossed in their tasks, oblivious to the turmoil in my life. I needed answers, but Emily was at school, unreachable until the end of the day. The day dragged on, each minute stretching into eternity. Finally, the school bell rang, signaling the end of the 2 days later. The phone rang with a ferocity that matched the storm brewing outside. It was Sarah, her voice a mix of rage and desperation. "Tom, what has Emily done?" she screamed. I was taken aback, not knowing what she was referring to. Sarah continued, "She's frozen the accounts, all of them. I can't access a single penny." The revelation hit me like a ton of bricks. Emily had not only confronted her mother's betrayal, but had outmaneuvered her. She had used her knowledge of online banking and financial management, skills she had picked, up from her interest in economics, to lock down the family's finances. She had effectively cut off Sarah's access to the funds, including the trust fund. I was torn between pride in Emily's resourcefulness and concern for the implications of her actions. Sarah's voice was now a distant echo as I realized the depth of Emily's plan. My daughter, with her quiet strength, had taken a stand, but at what cost? I tried to calm Sarah down, to make sense of the situation. "Sarah, let's talk about this. Maybe there's a way to sort this out without things getting worse," I said, hoping to appeal to whatever remained of our past connection. But Sarah was beyond reason. Tom, she's just a kid. How could she do this? How could you let her? Her accusations stung, but I knew Emily's actions were born out of necessity, out of the chaos Sarah had left in her wake. I hung up the phone, my mind racing. Emily had always been wise beyond her years, but this was a declaration of independence, a protective measure against further betrayal. I walked into the living room where Emily was sitting, her eyes fixed on the flickering screen of her laptop, her fingers flying over the keys. "Emily," I started, my voice a mix of concern and admiration. "What have you done?" She looked up at me, her expression calm but her eyes still stormy. "I did what needed to be done, Dad. Mom took something that wasn't hers to take. I just made sure she couldn't do it again." The weight of the situation settled on my shoulders as I watched Emily, her young face set with a resolve that seemed almost otherworldly. The tension in the house was palpable, like the air before a thunderstorm. Emily, now the de facto head of our household, was calm but resolute. She explained to me that she had not only frozen the accounts, but had also initiated legal proceedings to recover the trust fund. She had contacted our family lawyer, Mr. Henderson, who was now working pro bono, moved by Emily's determination and the injustice of Sarah's actions. Sarah, on the other hand, was not going down without a fight. Her voice was still echoing in my ears, filled with rage and desperation. She had threatened legal action against Emily, claiming emotional distress and manipulation. The situation escalated when Greg, her lover, got involved, trying to intimidate Emily with legal threats. He called, his voice dripping with venom, warning us that we were in for a battle we couldn't win. Emily, however, remained unshaken. "They can threaten all they want, Dad," she said, her voice steady. "I've got all the documentation. I've been keeping records of everything since Mom started acting strange. Mr. Henderson says we have a strong case." I was both proud and worried, proud of her foresight and her courage, but worried about the storm she was inviting into our lives. "Emily, are you sure about this? It's going to get ugly," I cautioned, knowing the legal battles could drag on, draining us emotionally and financially. She looked at me, her eyes reflecting a maturity far beyond her years. "Dad, sometimes you have to fight for what's right, even if it's hard. Mom did something wrong and she needs to face the consequences. Besides, it's not just about the money. It's about trust, and she broke that." The house felt like a battleground, each room a silent witness to the unfolding drama. I could almost see the lines drawn, the sides chosen. Emily, with her quiet strength, had become the protector of our family's integrity, while Sarah and Greg were the adversaries, ready to challenge her at every turn. As the days passed, the day of the court hearing arrived, and the tension was thick enough to slice through. Emily, dressed in her school uniform, stood beside me, her posture straight, her gaze unwavering. Sarah, with Greg by her side, looked less confident, her eyes darting around the room as if seeking an escape from the reality she had created. The courtroom was a stage, and we were all actors in this drama. The judge, after reviewing the evidence, including Emily's meticulous documentation of her actions and intentions, ruled in our favor. The trust fund was to be returned to Emily, and Sarah was ordered to pay legal fees. The air in the room shifted as the verdict was read. Emily's face remained composed, but I could see the relief in her eyes, a subtle softening of the storm that had been brewing there. The victory was not just legal, it was a moral one, a testament to Emily's integrity and foresight. As we stood to leave, Emily turned to her mother. With a maturity far beyond her years, she spoke, her voice clear and steady. "I did this not just for me, but for us, for our family's integrity." Sarah's face crumbled, the reality of her actions and their consequences hitting her hard. Her eyes, once filled with defiance, now brimmed with tears. It was a moment of reckoning, a mirror held up to her choices, reflecting back the pain she had inflicted. Greg, ever the shadow, whispered something to Sarah, his expression unreadable. But it was clear that the dynamics had shifted. Emily had not only reclaimed what was rightfully hers, but had also asserted her place in this family, a guardian of its values. As we walked out of the courtroom, the weight of the situation began to settle on my shoulders. Emily's victory was monumental, but the aftermath loomed large. What would this mean for our family? For Sarah? For the future relationship between mother and daughter? The drive home was silent, each of us lost in our thoughts. Emily stared out the window, her young face set with a resolve that seemed almost otherworldly. I glanced at her, feeling a mix of pride and concern. She had fought for what was right, but in the weeks that followed, our home slowly regained its warmth. The lavender scent, once a ghost, now mingled with the aroma of fresh baking, a sign that life was returning to some semblance of normalcy. Sarah, now living with Greg, reached out with apologies, her voice tinged with regret over the phone. She expressed a desire to mend bridges, to perhaps find a way back into our lives, not as a wife or mother in the traditional sense, but as someone seeking forgiveness. Emily, however, had grown wise beyond her years. She set boundaries, allowing for reconciliation, but not forgetting the lessons learned. "I'm willing to talk, Mom, but we need to understand each other better," she said during one of their cautious phone calls. It was clear she was not just protecting her future, but also the integrity of our family's bond. I watched my daughter grow into a young woman who had not only protected her future, but had also taught us all a lesson in resilience and foresight. The trust fund was secure, but more importantly, so was our family's bond. Emily had shown that sometimes the protector isn't who you expect, and in the end, it's not just about who protects whom, but how we protect each other. The house, once a battleground, now felt like a sanctuary again. Emily's room, with its walls adorned by posters of inspirational quotes and her laptop always open, was a testament to her determination. She had not only reclaimed what was rightfully hers, but had also asserted her place in this family, a guardian of its values. As the days turned into weeks, the dynamics within our family shifted. Sarah's calls became less frequent, her voice less desperate, more reflective. She was beginning to understand the gravity of her actions, the pain she had inflicted, not just on Emily, but on all of us. One evening, as Emily and I sat in the living room, the silence between us was comfortable, filled with an unspoken understanding. She looked at me, her eyes no longer stormy but thoughtful. "Dad, do you think Mom will ever really understand what she did?" she asked, her voice steady but carrying a hint of vulnerability. I took a moment. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.